Legal experts are calling this the biggest decision to hit the tech industry since the 2001 ruling against Microsoft, and it could serve notice to other tech giants that they are in fact next. Joining me now is Steve Baric, a former prosecutor and principal at Baric and Associates. Thanks so much for joining the docket. Steve, put this into perspective for us. How big of a development is this?
Well, everybody watching this show this is going to impact their lives directly. I mean, this is the biggest antitrust case in the last probably 15 years. And in the tech space, it may be the biggest antitrust lawsuit and verdict in tech history. I mean, Google is so pervasive, it's everywhere, and I think that was the problem. So, you know, this is just the beginning. I would caution you, Carolyn, this is in the district court. There's now going to be a trial on, you know, what the potential remedies are. And at that point, or in and around that time, I would anticipate Google filing an appeal. And so I think this battle is going to go all the way up to the U.S.
The court wrote in its opinion, quote, after having carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly. How did the court come to that conclusion?
Well, I think as the court outlined, you know, they had evidentiary hearings, there was briefings, there were declarations submitted to the court. This case was initiated under the Trump administration. So imagine that. This case has been going on for almost 4 years now. There was a mountain of evidence. And I think one of the things the court looked at was a lot of these kind of contracts and a lot of these arrangements that Google has that has crowded out other search engines such as Bing and I think other ones such as DuckDuckGo, the court cited. And so it was things like that that really came to the forefront when this court issued its landmark ruling.
And, you know, essentially then what you're saying is today's ruling says that Google basically illegally exploited its dominance, how big it is to take out the competition like the Bings and the DuckDuckGos. It got me thinking, though, businesses every single day strategize, right? They plan, they spend money, they want to gain that upper hand in order to be the market leader. So how did Google's actions then cross the line to it being illegal?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think businesses do that all over the place. I think part of the problem is a lot of times businesses, and it's gone all through history, right? The railroads, certain banks, things along those lines, they become, in a way, a victim of their own success, meaning they become so big, so strong that they're able to flex their muscle and actually effectuate their goals. Yes, a lot of businesses are out there and they would love to be the biggest, most dominant force in the industry, but they're unable to do so. Here, it's so clear by the evidentiary record that Google was successful in doing that, and then it used that might, that success, that financial power, that lobbying power in order to push any competitors out of the way to the point where there really, at this point, are very few, if any, real effective competitors for Google in the marketplace. And I think that's the point where the government starts to look at it and starts to be concerned. Also, I think another consideration is when an industry becomes so important to the general public, the government starts to take a look at it. And when you have a monopoly in that kind of area, that's when you start to see these lawsuits.
Right, but speaking of that, how will all of us be affected? Because I probably Google something 100 times a day, if not more. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, it's actually it's a word now. It's a I guess a verb, you would say, to Google something. It has its own meaning. It's reached the level of, oh, I'll have a Coke to denote like a soda pop or whatever. So I think the way this is going to impact the consumer going forward, depending on what the remedy the judge shapes, it could be that the company gets split up into different subsidiaries. You know, Google is not just the search engine. There are other things that are in that company. So this particular company could get split up by government action. There could be certain contracts, certain relationships that are voided and excluded. But I think what Google is really concerned about is also the financial penalties that would prevent it from exercising power in the future. But you know, there is a lot of fighting that's going to go on in the court between now and then, because if the state, if the government, if the judges rule that Google needs to be split up, that's a game changer.
A game changer for sure, and something that we as consumers will all feel. Steve Baric, former prosecutor and principal at Baric and Associates, thanks so much for being here. The federal election